Excellent. We'll begin. So I'm doing this live. I apologize if the title looks weird, such as life. I was just in a hurry for the piece. Anyway, um, if Reba had two children, one 20 and one Carissa, 16, the 16-year-old would be um, eligible for the child tax credit, which is $2,000 subject to income requirements. And Heather would be eligible for the dependent as long as she's in school still. If she's in school, then she is a dependent and is worth $500 on as a tax credit. And so together that'd be $2,500, subject to phase out amounts. I believe the amount is $200,000 for the phase out amount, and therefore Reba would not have to worry about any phase outs under this. So she would get the full $2,500. For question two, so she's been asked to make things and products and make an Etsy shop. Um, it does appear, based on the question, that this isn't a hobby, that she's actually doing this for a for-profit business. And so she can report this as a business. She is not making any money, but she can report this as a loss. And because she is using the craft closet, like the specific room for the amount, she can actually use a home office exception. Her thing is 9 divided by 1800. This is 0.005. It's a very small amount. And so she'd be able to deduct that amount of her utilities and taxes, but chances are the square footage may actually be more, which she can deduct up to 300. So this might be 4,500, or excuse me. So that would be $45 for the home office allowance. That might be more, and probably is because the 9 square feet is very small. So she'd only be deducting about 0.5% of her total utilities and other payments associated with the house. So it's probably not a whole lot. So she'd probably be better off with the quote unquote simple IRS deduction, which would be $45. But it would have to see. Maybe she lives in an extremely expensive place. Regarding her supplies, these become a pretty big loss, which, as a business loss, is deductible. So this would be 500 minus 420 minus 800 minus 80. So she'd be minus 800, which would go on the tax return as a loss and would then be deducted. Yeah, that's basically what's going on, is the business. Actually, so she would be able to deduct her supplies, and she'd be able to deduct the shipping fees. The Etsy's fee she may not be able to deduct. Anyway, moving on to the next problem. Reba recently engaged to Eric. They're trying to decide whether they want to get married. Eric is a physician who made $22,500. So with this one, Eric makes a lot of money. When they get married, Reba's tax, their joint thing goes up relative to Reba, but goes down relative to Eric. For 2020, for 2024, the married filing jointly would be 201 to 383, which would be the um, 201 or $201,000 to $383,000, or the 24% tax bracket is where they would fall. Previously, let me check and make sure I read this right. Our friend fell in the 32% tax bracket. So his tax thing drops quite a bit, and as he's making the predominant amount of money, their joint tax probably slightly improves. He doesn't have any dependents, so chances are he probably has fewer tax deductions. Overall, it is probably more beneficial for them to get married in 2023, because they will have been married at the end of the year and are thus they can thus file jointly and benefit from a pretty massive improvement of 0.6. So like was it 6%? Was it 8? 1 second. So he goes from 32%, and they would be filing in 2024 at 24%. Yeah. And then in 2023, they're again filing jointly, so it's 24%. In general, there's not a whole lot of difference between the thing. The percentages stay the same. The biggest difference is that they can save more money, specifically on the predominant amount of his tax return, by jumping it up. While she was originally filing as head of household, she was filing at 22%. So she goes up 2%, but he drops down quite a bit, so they'll save a lot of money on his taxes by filing jointly. Regarding when they do it, I mean, sooner is better for taxes, but I mean, maybe they want to have a nice celebration. How much time do I have? 13 minutes. I'm doing good. So Reba owns and rents out a small apartment building. It's smaller, half the tenants. So with the upgrades, she can deduct these, but this, I believe the $22,000 would be part of the building, and it would be a capitalization expense. So she would have to depreciate that over 27.5 years, I believe, because it is a residential property. The residential property, so each year she'd depreciate that over where did I put that? Yeah, it's 27.5 year. So you'd have to deduct that. So we divide the 22,000 by thing, and we basically just consult the table. So yeah, this is the residential table, and you'd be able to deduct a certain amount each year. It's kind of complicated, so you'd have to deduct a little bit each year by multiplying based on the month in which she did the repairs. But yeah, it would be she'd be able to deduct the depreciation year after year um, on on her improvements. So the 22,000 would get amortized over 27.5 years. The following year, she can't do anything about the loss of rental income she does while she's not renting out the place, but she would be able to deduct the rental upgrades in the amount of the 22, like the amount that is due that year, she'd be able to deduct that year due to the improvements that she made. With regards to question 5, she is an educator, and so she would benefit a lot from keeping track of educator expenses. For unreimbursed classroom expenses, she can deduct those. But in many states, they require personal development. And so you might have to go to school, you might have to be pursuing a degree, or you might have to get a degree in education, depending on your state. And those would be tax deductible. And so she should keep track and look for those for future tax years.